Hello, my name is Rachel and I'm here today to talk about some of the books I have read this year. I haven't really done any wrap-ups this year, which has felt weird but also kind of nice. I don't have any like rush to finish a book at the end of the month, which has been really lovely. I have done a bit of a wrap up of some books though. I did like some graphic novel reviews of graphic novels that I'd read recently and things like that, so I'm not going to mention any of those, and I think I'm going to keep collating the graphic novels as I read them and doing them on their own in a video because I'd rather just talk about them separately. So these are the books that I've read since the start of the year that aren't graphic novels. There's about 9 books here. I've also been dipping into quite a few other books, but I've not finished them for whatever reason. So yeah, I'm just going to mention these ones. The first 2 I want to mention though are rereads, so I'll mention those briefly. The first one is Noughts and Crossan by Malorie Blackman, and then Knife Edge by Malorie Blackman. I don't have the first book, I lent it to my girlfriend. I listened to that one on audiobook, and then I listened to this one on audiobook as well. And I've been really enjoying getting back into the story that way. So I decided to reread them because the BBC show was coming out. I've only watched the first episode so far and I don't know how I feel about it because I feel like it's really different to what I imagined the world to be, like the world Noughts and Crossan is set in. But at the same time I'm like, well, is it really different because I imagined basically the world as it is now, except black and white people were switched, whereas if black and white people were switched then the world wouldn't be as it is now, and it would swing towards being more like influenced by maybe African culture or by like, you know, whatever, like the dress will be different, jewelry will be different, music will be different. And so I found it really weird when I watched it, but at the same time I don't think that it's a negative of the show itself and the way that they're redoing it. I think it's my like just assuming that if white and black people switched everything would stay the same except they'd be switched, and that isn't how it would be. So that has been really interesting. Oh my god, love Noughts and Crossan so much. I just think it is such a good book, especially for teenagers, to like get a sort of feel for what racism is and like terrorism as well. The first one a lot, but then this one kind of goes a lot more into it and into how divisive those sorts of feelings of hatred towards someone who is racist, like it can divide you as a person, to the point where we have a character in here who is just completely split down the middle with hatred and then kind of liking someone at the same time, and then it culminating in just like the worst possible way. I love these books. I think they are so well done and would really highly recommend them. I do want to carry on reading these, reading Checkmate and Double Cross, and then read for the first time Crossfire, which is the new one that's come out, but I think I'm going to continue listening to them on audiobook, so just waiting for my next Audible credit and then I will pick that one up. So been enjoying those. And then I went into a little Roald Dahl craze. I've mentioned before that me and my best friend went to the Roald Dahl Museum in Great Missenden, and because we were going there I was like, oh, I'm going to read some Roald Dahls before we go. The first one I picked up was The Twits, which is one I'd never read before and I wasn't overly impressed. I gave this 2 stars. I think what I've noticed is the Roald Dahls I seem to gravitate to the most, I'm just my box is there with like all the books, and I'm just thinking like the ones that I really like are always the ones with kids at the heart of them or the ones with animals at the heart of them. So like I really love SDO Trot, I really love Fantastic Mr. Fox, even the Magic Finger that has a lot of animals in it, and then the ones with kids at the heart of them, because I know that I don't love George's Marvelous Medicine and that centres on a lot of older people as well, and I think yeah, his like hatred of older people in his books, like they're really demonized. I don't know, I just don't get into it. I don't find it that funny, not in a horrible way, but yeah, this wasn't my favourite ever and I ended up giving it 2 stars, but I'm glad I read it. This is one that a lot of kids read at the school I work at if they're like lower ability. This is a really accessible book for them, so I'm glad that I've read it and I know what the story is, but at the same time like it's not the best. Then I picked up Going Solo, which is the 2nd edition of his memoirs. So we have Boy, Tales of Childhood, which I've mentioned a lot on this channel recently. Really loved that book. It's one of my favourite books I read last year. And this is basically the follow on. So when Boy finishes, I think he's around 18, maybe 21. And then this follows on and takes us through his career. I think, is he in the area? He does something to do with being a pilot anyway, and then he like goes and travels in Africa, and it's all about stuff like that. I enjoyed this, but it wasn't Boy. I really loved Boy. It had that like really childish, daft trickery type of stuff to it that I really loved, whereas this one was more an insight into his job and his life and travelling, which was really interesting but wasn't as good for me. I think I ended up giving it 3 stars, and it was alright, but it wasn't my favourite. And then I have mentioned this one in a video recently as well, but I just thought I would mention it again because I loved it so much. This is one of my favourite books I've read so far this year, and it is My Year by Roald Dahl, illustrated by Quentin Blake. They've all been illustrated by Quentin Blake. I don't know why I pointed that out this time. But this was from the museum. It's a special edition that you can get when you're there, and it's just Roald Dahl going through a year, month by month, and just talking about things that happen in that month. So like there's a month where he talks about when conkers become a thing again, and like he just explains the game of conkers that kids play. I don't know why, I just loved it. I just thought it was so sweet, and it really resonated with me because I really like gardening. He talks a hell of a lot about gardening in this, so I really liked that. And it's just a really cute, like, get cozy, chill spring kind of read. I just really loved it, so I would really recommend this if you can pick up a copy. Okay, next we have Clownfish by Alan Durant. So I'm running some book clubs with the kids at the school that I work at. They're now going to be online book clubs, so we'll see how that ends up going. We haven't had our first meeting yet, but this is one of the books that they are going to be reading, so I thought I would pick it up and just get to it sooner rather than later, so that I had a bit of time to prep what we're going to talk about. This is about a little boy whose father has just died, and him and his father always go to the aquarium together. They always used to do it like every week, I think. And then he goes and he thinks he sees his father, and that his father is a clownfish, and he has conversations with his dad. He goes and visits his dad all the time, and it's all about a child dealing with grief for the first time. I think it's handled really well, to be honest. I think it would be difficult if you were a child who'd gone through grief for reading this. It'd pull up a lot of feelings that you hadn't maybe dealt with yet, so I think that would be difficult, but it's a really good way of like introducing the topic to kids if you want to explain what grief is. So yeah, would recommend this, kind of. It's alright. It wasn't my favourite ever, but if it's the kind of thing that you like, I think that it would be interesting, if that makes sense. Then I finished reading Stop Worrying, Start Writing, How to Overcome Fear, Self-Doubt and Procrastination by Sarah Painter. This was not great. There's nothing new in here. There's nothing I didn't already know, and I haven't, like, I do read writing craft books and I watch videos about it on YouTube, but I wouldn't say I was well read. The fact that I already knew everything in here and didn't really get anything new from it is bad, because I should, because I haven't read loads of them. She just talks about like how to be a writer, trying to write every day, trying to establish a habit, all the predictable stuff that you'd expect someone to talk about, to be honest. I didn't find it very enlightening or helpful, to be honest. Wouldn't recommend this one. Isn't great. Not going to spend much time on it. Then I read Just for Show by Jay. This was an audiobook. Now, I read an audiobook by this author before. I'm just checking what it was called because I can't remember, but I absolutely loved it. Like, I thought it was so great. It was one of my favourite like romancy type audiobooks that I've listened to, because I quite like most pathetic, bottom of the road, cheesy lesbian romancy type books. I don't read them all the time, but every few months, maybe every 6 months, I'll go through a phase where I just read like 3 or 4 in a row, and I love it. So it was called Falling Hard, and it's one of my favourite ones that I've read. I really loved it. It was proper good. And so yeah, I picked up Just for Show, and it was not the same. Really didn't enjoy it. Found it quite boring. Ended up, I think it must have took me about 3 months to read it, which I was listening to on audiobook, so that is not normal for me. I kept stopping listening to it and listening to other books instead, listening to podcasts, just doing anything but listen to it, to be honest. Which I know you would say I should have DNF'd it. I probably should, but I don't really do that often. Yeah, it just felt really lazy, really tropey, but in the worst way. Like, the other book was full of tropes, but they were done really well. So Just for Show is about a woman who is a psychiatrist, I think she is. She deals with marriage counselling and relationship counselling, and she has a book coming out. But her and her fiance have just broken up just before her wedding, and her publicist says to her, they're not going to pick your book up anymore. They'll cancel your book the minute they find out that you have broken up with your partner, because you've literally just had a failed relationship and you're trying to say you're a relationship expert. It just won't work. So they decide they're going to hire an actress to play her better half for the foreseeable future until the book comes out, just to like go to press conferences and all that sort of stuff together. Yes, it is as cheesy as it sounds. It kind of reminded me of The Wedding Date, if anyone's seen that. It has the girl from Will and Grace in and the guy from My Best Friend's Wedding. I can't remember what he's called. But yeah, it really reminded me of that film, but like a lesbian version. And yeah, like I said, it just wasn't great. Wouldn't recommend it very highly. You can probably brush straight past it and just read something else instead. The last book that I have to talk to you about is Toffee by Sarah Crossan. I have read One and Moonrise by Sarah Crossan so far and really loved both of those, so I really wanted to pick this up when I saw it. I really enjoyed this book. So this is about a little girl. She's not called Toffee. What's she called? Yeah, this is about Alison. Alison has basically been living in a home that's quite abusive, and she runs away and she goes to this like seaside town and hides in someone's shed. And then this woman comes out and finds her Marla, and she's like, what are you doing in my shed? Just come inside, Toffee. And she's like, why is this random woman calling me Toffee? Like, who is this? But she goes in anyway, and it turns out that this woman has either Alzheimer's or dementia. I always get those two confused because I don't know the difference. But that sounds really bad, I'm sorry. But yeah, basically like something where she forgets everything quite often, and so she thinks that this girl is her childhood friend Toffee, and so she basically just lives with her and looks after her quite a bit. And I think the best thing about this book is that it shows disdain and lack of care that's given to older people, especially older people who have any sort of like forgetful sort of issue. So this woman is constantly telling, the nurse comes around every day, and her brother-in-law comes around, not her brother-in-law, her son, and someone else, and every time any of them come round, she's like, oh yeah, this girl comes in and helps me, and she does this and she does that. And they're all like, yeah, of course she does. And it's just that like thing of everyone's probably done it, where someone says something and you're like, yeah, of course, and you assume they're lying. You do it with kids all the time, and actually like you know that she's telling the truth. And this little girl who's living with her is looking after her better than anyone else is, treating her more like a person, because she still is a person, than anyone else in her life, even though these people are her son, the nurse who's supposed to care for her. So yeah, I found this really interesting. I think I ended up giving it 4 stars. It was again the trademark Sarah Crossan, where it's told in not prose, the other one, verse. And I really love that about her books. It means you can really fly through them, and she just writes in such a beautiful way as well. So yeah, I would highly recommend this. I really enjoyed it. Always love Sarah Crossan books. Want to try and pick up some of the ones that she did earlier. I think there's she wrote The Weight of Water. Oh, that was Annabelle Pitcher. I can't remember. I always get those two mixed up. But I want to read that. I want to read We Come Apart, which I think is the one she did with Kit DeWall. Is it Kit DeWall? I am not very good at remembering anything, is what seems to be happening in this video. But yeah, they're all the books that I've been reading recently, not counting graphic novels. If you've read any of these and want to talk to me about them in the comments below, please do, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!